A weathered suit, impeccable posture, and a worn briefcase holding a secret that would flip a world of privilege upside down. When the alarm was silently triggered, no one expected the papers inside would shatter generations of exclusion. What happens when someone you've dismissed holds the key to your future? In the gleaming heart of Westwood Hills, where wealth whispered from every storefront, Everett James straightened his tie before entering Harrington & Sons fine jewelry. At 62, his salt-and-pepper hair and weathered hands told a story of hard work, though few in this part of town would bother to read it. His suit, while impeccably pressed, had seen better days, much like the man himself. The moment he stepped through the door, the atmosphere shifted. Security cameras swiveled slightly. A young sales associate glanced up, then quickly away. The message was clear. He didn't belong. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow reflections across glass cases filled with diamonds that cost more than most people's homes. Everett moved with unhurried confidence, his eyes methodically studying each display. He had waited decades for this moment. "May I help you?" The voice was professionally cool. The store manager, Patricia Whitfield, approached with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her pearl necklace and tailored blazer screamed old money, her posture one of someone accustomed to being in control. "Yes," Everett replied, his voice deep and measured. "I'd like to see your finest piece, please." Patricia's smile flickered. Her eyes darted to his worn cuffs, the slight fraying at his collar. "Our finest pieces start at around $200,000. Perhaps I could show you something more suitable." "Your finest piece," Everett repeated calmly. Her lips tightened. "Of course. One moment." As she turned, her manicured hand casually slipped beneath the counter, pressing the silent alarm that would summon security. It was a movement small enough to miss, unless you were looking for it. Everett was. He reached into his weathered leather briefcase and removed a sealed envelope. "Before your security arrives," he said quietly, "you might want to look at this." Patricia froze, her perfectly arched eyebrows rising. She took the envelope with 2 fingers, as if it might contaminate her. As she read the document inside, her face drained of color, the blood rushing from her cheeks so quickly it was almost audible. This is the deed to Harrington & Sons," Everett finished for her, a smile touching the corners of his mouth. "All 12 locations. Signed and notarized this morning. I believe that makes me your new employer, Ms. Whitfield." The security guard arrived, slightly out of breath. "Everything okay, Ms. Whitfield?" Patricia's hand trembled as she held the papers. "Yes, James. Everything's fine. This is Mr. James, the new owner of Harrington & Sons." In the silence that followed, a diamond ring in the nearest display case caught the light, sending a perfect rainbow across Patricia's shocked face. The executive office of Harrington & Sons was a shrine to old wealth. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, and oil paintings of stern-faced men who had wielded their fortune like a weapon. Everett settled into the chair behind the desk, running his fingertips over the polished wood. "Would you like some coffee, Mr. James?" Patricia hovered in the doorway, her composure partially recovered but her eyes still wary. The transformation from confident manager to uncertain employee had happened in minutes. "Yes, thank you." "Black." Everett's voice remained gentle, but his eyes never left hers. While she was gone, he examined the photographs on the wall. 4 generations of Harrington men, none of whom had ever imagined someone like him sitting in this chair. Their portraits seemed to glare at him accusingly. Patricia returned with coffee in a fine china cup emblazoned with the Harrington crest. "The staff is quite surprised by the change in ownership," she said, setting the cup down carefully. "Mr. Harrington didn't mention selling." "I imagine he didn't," Everett replied, taking a sip. "The transaction was completed through his daughter, Eleanor. She and I share certain perspectives on how this business should be run." "Eleanor?" Patricia couldn't hide her shock. "But she hasn't been involved with the company in years. Not since she suggested hiring more diverse staff and was overruled by her father," Everett finished. "Yes, I'm aware." The phone on the desk rang. Patricia moved to answer it, but Everett raised a hand. "I believe that would be Mr. Harrington himself. I'll take it." He lifted the receiver, his expression remaining neutral as angry shouts emanated from the other end. He listened patiently before speaking. "Yes, Richard, the documents are entirely legitimate. No, Eleanor is not confused or being manipulated. I understand your concerns, but the sale is final. Perhaps you should have listened to your daughter's ideas years ago. Yes, I'll see you at the board meeting tomorrow." He hung up, noting Patricia's wide eyes. "It seems news travels fast," he said. "Now, I'd like to see the employee files and the last 3 years of financial records." "All of them?" Patricia asked, her voice thin. "All of them," Everett confirmed. "I'm particularly interested in hiring and promotion patterns, and customer demographics." As Patricia hurried to gather the requested materials, Everett removed a small worn photograph from his wallet. A smiling black woman in a Harrington & Sons maintenance uniform stood proudly in front of the store, decades younger. He placed it on the desk, positioning it so it faced the portraits of the Harrington men. "I made it, Mom," he whispered, "just like I promised. Have you ever been underestimated like Everett or Maya? Share in the comments what personal treasures you've designed in your life, whether it's art, relationships, or personal growth that others initially dismissed. What's your celestial dragon creation? Let your story inspire our community." Maya Chen had been wiping the same display case for 5 minutes. She couldn't stop staring at the new owner, trying to comprehend what she'd just witnessed. In 3 years of working at Harrington & Sons, first as a custodian and now as a sales assistant, she'd never seen Patricia Whitfield flustered. Yet here was this dignified black man who had turned the store's hierarchy upside down with a single envelope. "You missed a spot." The voice startled her. Mr. James stood nearby, watching her with amused eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just eavesdropping." His tone wasn't accusing, but warm. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. Yes. I couldn't help it. It's not every day someone comes in and—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish. "Claims what should have been theirs all along," he suggested. She nodded, then glanced around nervously. "I should get back to work. Ms. Whitfield doesn't like us talking too long with—" She caught herself. "With people who look like they can't afford anything in here?" Everett finished, his eyebrow raising. Maya's silence was answer enough. "What's your name?" "Maya Chen, sir." "How long have you worked here, Maya?" 3 years. I started in maintenance, but I asked to train as a sales assistant. Ms. Whitfield finally agreed 6 months ago." Everett nodded thoughtfully. "And before that?" "I studied design at community college. Jewelry design, actually." She hesitated, then added in a whisper, "I have sketches. Designs of my own. Not that anyone here would look at them. I'd like to see them." Maya blinked in surprise. "You would? Bring them to me tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. He paused, studying her face. "Tell me, Maya, what's the most expensive piece you've been allowed to sell?" She looked down. "The mid-range pieces, mostly. Ms. Whitfield handles the premium clients herself. And how do you decide who might be a premium client?" Maya's discomfort was visible. There's a profile. How they dress, what they drive, their appearance. "Their race?" Everett asked directly. Maya nodded almost imperceptibly. "It's never stated outright, but—" She glanced toward the office where Patricia was gathering files. "I should really get back to work, Mr. James." "Of course, 9 o'clock tomorrow. Don't forget your designs." As he turned to leave, he added, "And Maya, that spot you've been wiping for the last 5 minutes? It's on the inside of the glass." For the first time that day, Maya Chen smiled. By late afternoon, Everett had commandeered the conference room, spreading financial records and employee files across the long table. The picture emerging was exactly what he'd suspected: systematic discrimination woven into the very fabric of the business. Security footage revealed Black and Latino customers followed closely, while white customers browsed freely. Commission records showed that Patricia and her 2 white senior salespeople handled all clients who purchased items over $50,000, regardless of which associate initiated the sale. A knock at the door interrupted his review. It was James, the security guard who had responded to Patricia's silent alarm that morning. "Mr. James, got a minute?" The guard seemed uncomfortable, shifting his weight between feet. Come in, James, and please call me Everett. Having two James in conversation gets confusing. The guard stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Sir, I wanted to explain about this morning. When Ms. Whitfield called security, Everett held up a hand. You were doing your job. Yes, but James hesitated. It happens a lot. The silent alarm for certain customers. Black customers? James nodded slowly. And Hispanic, like me. Asian sometimes, depending on how they're dressed. He straightened his uniform. I have 3 kids in college. This job pays better than most security work. I'm not here to judge you, James. Everett gestured to the chair across from him. I'd like to understand the operation from your perspective. How long have you worked here? 7 years. Before that, I was police. 20 years on the force. Everett leaned forward. And in those 7 years, how many actual theft attempts have occurred? James thought for a moment. 2. Both were white college students on a dare. Everett nodded, making notes. Tell me about the Diamond Night event. It's coming up soon, yes? Next week. Biggest night of the year. Invitation only. James lowered his voice. Security is always told to keep out anyone who doesn't belong, even if they have an invitation. It's understood what that means. The door opened and Patricia entered with more files. She frowned at seeing James seated across from Everett. Is there a security issue? She asked pointedly. No issue, Everett replied calmly. James was just explaining some of the store procedures to me. Very helpful. James stood quickly. I should get back to my post. After he left, Patricia set down the files. I've gathered the customer demographic information you requested, though I'm not sure why it's relevant. We serve whoever can afford our merchandise. Do you? Everett opened a folder containing photos of the last 3 Diamond Night events. Nothing but white faces in expensive clothes, drinking champagne and trying on million-dollar pieces. Because your own data suggests otherwise. Maya's tiny apartment was a riot of color and creativity. Every surface covered with sketchbooks, beads, wire, and tools. She sat cross-legged on the floor, spreading out her best designs with trembling hands. For years, she'd hidden these drawings, showing them only to Patricia, who had dismissed them as derivative before somehow producing nearly identical pieces months later. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, Zoe, a makeup artist at the department store next to Harrington's. Is it true? Someone bought the whole chain? Rumors flying everywhere. Maya typed back, True. Black man named Everett James. Patricia nearly fainted. Zoe replied immediately, OMG. Karma finally came for that witch? I need details when I get home. Maya smiled, then returned to sorting her designs. She selected her 12 best, sliding them carefully into a portfolio. These weren't just sketches. They were pieces of her soul, dreams rendered in pencil and ink, dreams that had been stolen once before. A knock at the door startled her. It was Zoe, home early and bursting with curiosity. Tell me everything, Zoe demanded, dropping her makeup case and flopping onto their worn couch. Kendra from Nordstrom said Patricia was seen leaving in tears. Not tears, Maya corrected. More like barely controlled rage. You should have seen her face when he showed her those papers. Who is this guy? Some rich investor? Maya shook her head. I don't think so. He knew things. About how the store operates, the discrimination. He asked me about my designs. Zoe sat up straighter. The ones Patricia stole? I can't prove that. You don't need to prove it to me. I saw the new collection in the window. That teardrop sapphire pendant? Pure Maya Chen. Maya's phone buzzed again, this time an email notification. She opened it, then gasped. What? Zoe asked, leaning over. It's from Mr. James. He wants to see my portfolio tomorrow. Says my perspective is invaluable since I've worked in multiple capacities at the store. Zoe whooped. Girl, this is it. Your chance. Maya bit her lip. Or a trap. What if Patricia put him up to this? To see if I'll say something that gives her an excuse to fire me. You said yourself she looked ready to murder someone. No way is this her idea. Zoe grabbed Maya's shoulders. Think about it. The way she treats customers who look like us. How she passed you over for promotion 3 times. How how she stole your designs. Don't you want justice? That night, Maya added one more design to her portfolio, one she'd never shown anyone, not even Zoe. It was her masterpiece, a necklace inspired by her Chinese grandmother's stories of dragons and her African-American grandfather's tales of constellations that guided escaped slaves to freedom. East and West, stars and scales, a fusion of cultures that was uniquely hers. If she was going to take a risk, it would be with everything she had. Everett arrived at the store early before even the maintenance staff. He stood in the empty showroom, remembering another time, decades earlier. A small boy holding his mother's hand as she cleaned these same display cases, dreaming of the treasures inside them. "She worked so hard," a voice said from behind him. Everett turned to find an elderly white man in a janitor's uniform. The name tag read Frank. "Excuse me?" "Your mother, Irene. She worked so hard." Frank smiled at Everett's surprise. "You look just like her, you know. Same eyes, same way of standing, straight-backed like you're ready for whatever comes." "You knew my mother?" Frank nodded. 30 years, we cleaned this place together. Starting at 5 a.m., finishing after everyone else had gone home. She was so proud when you got that scholarship. Engineering, wasn't it?" "Computer science," Everett corrected, studying the old man's face. "I don't remember seeing you when I visited her at work. Different shifts by then. But she always showed me your pictures, the graduation, your first company. She said you were going to change the world." Frank's eyes twinkled. "Looks like you're starting with Harrington and Sons." Before Everett could respond, the front door chimed as Maya entered, clutching a portfolio to her chest. She stopped short at seeing the two men. "I'm sorry, am I too early?" "Not at all," Everett assured her. "Frank and I were just catching up on old times. Frank, this is Maya Chen." "We've met," Frank said warmly. "Maya stays late sometimes, working on her drawings. Got talent, this one." Maya blushed. "Thank you, Frank." At exactly 9 o'clock, Everett called everyone to the center of the showroom. 20 pairs of eyes watched him warily. "Good morning. For those I haven't met yet, I'm Everett James, the new owner of Harrington and Sons. Some of you may be wondering how this came to be, or what changes are coming." He paused, looking at each face in turn. "The how is simple. Eleanor Harrington approached me 3 months ago, concerned about practices at her family's business. After reviewing the evidence, I made an offer." Patricia stepped forward. "Evidence of what, exactly?" "Systematic discrimination against customers and employees of color, theft of intellectual property." Everett's gaze lingered on Maya. "And a particularly troubling scheme involving gemstone substitution for certain international clients." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Patricia's face paled. "That's absurd," she hissed. "These accusations are documented in your own records," Everett finished. "Which brings me to the changes coming. First, effective immediately, all employees will receive equal consideration for advancement, regardless of race or background. Second, a new profit-sharing program will ensure that when the company succeeds, everyone benefits." By mid-afternoon, the backlash had begun. First came the cancellations. 3 major clients, all friends of Richard Harrington, closing their accounts. Then the whispers among staff, led by Patricia and her inner circle. Finally, most alarmingly, a call from their primary diamond supplier citing inventory issues that would delay the next shipment, the one needed for Diamond Night. Everett sat in the executive office, calmly making notes as Patricia recounted each disaster with barely concealed satisfaction. "The Westbrooks have been clients for 4 generations," she emphasized. "Their annual purchases alone account for nearly 2% of our revenue. And how much do you spend wooing them each year? The private viewings, the champagne, the custom designs that never quite satisfy Mrs. Westbrook until the 3rd or 4th iteration?" Patricia faltered. "That's relationship building. It's how this business works." "Is it?" Everett pushed a spreadsheet toward her. "Because my analysis suggests we spend more courting 50 elite clients than we earn from them. Meanwhile, we ignore broader markets with greater potential." The phone rang again. Patricia answered, her expression souring as she listened. "It's Eleanor Harrington," she said, holding out the receiver. She insists on speaking with you." Everett took the call, his face revealing nothing as he listened. When he hung up, Patricia was watching expectantly. "Problem?" she asked, failing to hide her hope. "Not at all. Eleanor was calling to warn me that her father has convinced several board members to challenge the sale." Everett smiled slightly. "Unfortunately for them, the contracts are ironclad." Later that afternoon, Everett walked the sales floor, observing interactions between staff and customers. The patterns were unmistakable. Subtle steering of clients of color toward less expensive items, white customers receiving more attentive service. What he didn't expect was the customer who confronted him directly. Vivian Westbrook, wife of the state senator and longtime Harrington client. "So, you're the one who's ruining this establishment," she said loudly, drawing every eye in the store. Her diamonds glittered like armor as she looked him up and down. "Richard told me what was happening, but I had to see for myself." Everett offered his hand. "Mrs. Westbrook, I presume? I'm Everett James." She ignored his outstretched hand. "I've spent millions here over the decades, Mr. James. My family's patronage helped build Harrington's reputation, and now I hear you're turning Diamond Night into some kind of diversity showcase." The store had gone silent, everyone watching the confrontation. Everett kept his voice level. "Diamond Night will continue to feature extraordinary pieces for our most valued clients. We're simply broadening our definition of valued." Vivian's laugh was brittle. "How quaint. Well, I'll be sure to tell my friends about the new direction. I suspect many will share my decision to take our business elsewhere." After she left, the silence lingered. Everett turned to find the entire staff watching. Some shocked, others quietly pleased at the confrontation. Patricia stood behind the main counter, a satisfied smile playing at her lips. The battle lines were drawn, and Diamond Night was only 5 days away. "They're trying to sabotage us," Maya said, pacing the conference room. "The supplier, the Westbrooks, even some of our own staff." It was late evening and most employees had gone home. Only Everett, Maya, James the security guard, and Frank remained, strategizing over pizza and coffee. "Sabotage is a strong word," Everett replied, though he didn't disagree. "What else would you call it?" Maya gestured to the list of issues they'd compiled. 5 key staff called in sick tomorrow. All Patricia's friends. 3 vendors suddenly can't fulfill orders. And somehow, half our Diamond Night invitations were lost in delivery. James shook his head. "She's right, Mr. James. I overheard Patricia on the phone with Mr. Harrington Sr. They're coordinating." Everett leaned back, considering. "Then we need to coordinate too. A counter-strategy." He turned to Frank. "You've been here longest. Who among the staff might be allies?" Frank thought for a moment. "Tomas, in maintenance. His niece applied for a sales position 3 times, always rejected despite her experience. Sarah, at the front desk. She's been passed over for promotion repeatedly. And David, in accounting. He flagged the gemstone substitution scheme 2 years ago and was nearly fired for it." Everett nodded. "James, I need extra security for Diamond Night, people you trust. Can you arrange that?" "Already on it," James confirmed. "My old precinct buddies, all retired with private security clearance. Diverse group, too." "Good. And Maya, where are we with the Sierra Leone Cooperative?" She smiled for the first time that evening. "Mr. Okoro is coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. He's bringing their finest stones, including a perfect blue diamond that would be amazing for the centerpiece of my celestial dragon necklace." "Perfect." Everett stood, walking to the whiteboard where they'd mapped out their challenges. "Now, about those lost invitations." Maya's eyes lit up. "I have an idea for that, too. My roommate Zoe works in makeup at Nordstrom. She knows everybody in the fashion and luxury retail scene, including social media influencers with huge followings. What if we create a second public event alongside the private one? An unveiling of the new collection, open to anyone who loves fine jewelry?" Everett smiled. "Disruption. I like it. But how do we announce it without alerting Patricia's camp?" "Leave that to me," Maya said, already texting Zoe. "By tomorrow afternoon, everyone who matters will know about the Harrington's transformation, except the people trying to stop it." As they refined their plan, Everett reflected on how quickly this makeshift team had formed. People who had been overlooked, finding strength together. It reminded him of his early days in tech, building his first startup with other outsiders who'd been told they didn't belong. "One more thing," he said as they prepared to leave. "Diamond Knight isn't just about selling jewelry or making a statement. It's about changing the culture of this company permanently. Whatever happens, remember that we're building something that will outlast a single evening." Everett arrived early the next morning to find Patricia already in the executive office, rearranging the items on his desk. She jumped slightly at his entrance. "Mr. James, I was just tidying up before our meeting with the design team." "How thoughtful," Everett replied, noting that his mother's photograph had been moved to a drawer. He calmly retrieved it and placed it back on the desk. "I believe Mr. Okoro from the Sierra Leone Cooperative will be arriving soon. Please ensure he's brought directly to me when he arrives." Patricia's smile tightened. "Of course, though I should mention, our traditional suppliers have suddenly resolved their inventory issues. The diamonds will arrive this afternoon. So perhaps this alternative source is unnecessary. I still want to meet him." "As you wish." Patricia hesitated at the door. "There's one other matter. Several board members have requested an emergency meeting this afternoon. They seem concerned about the direction of the company." "I'm sure they are," Everett said mildly. "Please inform them I'll be available at 3. At 10:15, Patricia returned looking satisfied. Mr. Okoro called to cancel. Apparently, he received a better offer from Cartier this morning. Everett studied her face. Interesting, since Cartier already has an exclusive contract with a different African supplier. Did Mr. Okoro happened to mention who he spoke with at Cartier? Patricia's confidence faltered slightly. "I didn't ask for details. If you'd like, I can try to reach him again." "That won't be necessary." Everett picked up his phone, dialing. "Mr. Okoro. Everett James here. Yes, I understand you received a call." "I see. No, that person doesn't represent Cartier. In fact, I suspect it was someone trying to prevent our meeting." "Yes, we're still very interested." "1 hour? Perfect. We'll see you then." He hung up, fixing Patricia with a steady gaze. "Interesting. Mr. Okoro says a woman claiming to be from Cartier called him this morning, offering double his asking price if he canceled our meeting. When he attempted to follow up with Cartier directly, they had no knowledge of the offer." Patricia's face drained of color. "Perhaps there was a miscommunication." "Perhaps," Everett agreed. "Or perhaps someone is desperate to see us fail on Diamond Knight." By the time the board meeting began that afternoon, Everett had compiled a detailed dossier of the day's accidents and coincidences. He laid it all out methodically for the 5 board members, all white men in their 60s, all friends of Richard Harrington, as Maya sat quietly beside him, her portfolio in her lap. "This is absurd," huffed William Preston, the most senior member. "You can't possibly believe Patricia Whitfield would sabotage her own workplace." "Not her workplace," Everett corrected. "What she considers her rightful workplace, now threatened by changes she opposes." The next 3 days passed in a blur of creativity and confrontation. In the workshop behind the main showroom, master jewelers worked around the clock on Maya's designs, their initial skepticism giving way to professional respect as her vision took shape in platinum, gold, and stones. The centerpiece, the Celestial Dragon necklace, featured a stunning blue diamond from the Sierra Leone Cooperative, surrounded by a flowing design of smaller diamonds and sapphires that formed a dragon chasing stars across the wearer's collarbone. It was unlike anything Harrington's had ever created. Bold yet elegant, traditional yet innovative. Patricia had been assigned to oversee the project, a position that clearly pained her. She hovered at the edges, making occasional cutting remarks about amateur concepts and novelty pieces. But even she couldn't deny the beauty emerging from the jeweler's hands. On the second day, Everett found Maya alone in the workshop late at night, making minute adjustments to a dragon scale bracelet. "You should rest," he said gently. "Diamond Night is tomorrow." Maya looked up, dark circles under her eyes but face glowing with excitement. "I can't. Not when it's all finally happening." She held up the bracelet, platinum scales catching the light. I've dreamed of this moment since I was 15, sketching designs in math class. Everett sat beside her. Tell me about that 15-year-old girl. Maya smiled sadly. Mixed race kid in a mostly white school. Too Asian for some groups, too black for others. Drawing was my escape. She turned the bracelet in her hands. I designed this after some girls told me I didn't belong anywhere, like scales that could protect me. And now it's going to be worn by someone paying thousands of dollars for the privilege. If anyone shows up, Maya said, voicing the fear they'd all been harboring. What if Patricia and the others are right? What if no one wants jewelry designed by someone like me, sold in a store run by someone like you? Everett was quiet for a moment. When I started my first tech company, every venture capitalist in Silicon Valley told me there was no market for security software designed specifically for small businesses. Too niche, too low budget. He smiled at the memory. 5 years later, I sold that unmarketable company for 8 figures. What made the difference? I stopped trying to fit my vision into their narrow worldview. The market was always there. They just couldn't see it because it didn't look like them. He stood, gesturing at the workshop filled with half-completed pieces. This is your vision, Maya. Trust it. On the morning of Diamond Night, disaster struck. Patricia arrived with news that their lead jeweler had called in sick, food poisoning, allegedly, and 3 of their sales staff had followed suit. Quite the coincidence, Everett remarked. Patricia didn't bother denying it. People are loyal to the Harrington legacy. Including you? She met his gaze directly. I've given 20 years to this company. I've built relationships with clients who trust me, who rely on my taste and judgment, and now you're throwing all that away for some social experiment. No, Everett corrected. I'm expanding it to include people and perspectives that should have been valued all along. As evening fell, Harrington & Sons underwent a metamorphosis. The traditional crystal chandeliers remained, but now they were supplemented by modern lighting that cast dragon-shaped shadows across the walls. The usual classical music had been replaced with a subtle blend of international sounds, from Chinese guzheng to West African kora. Most striking were the display cases. Unable to get the correct ones, Maya and Zoe had improvised, draping rich fabrics and jewel tones across the existing cases, creating an atmosphere more reminiscent of a global bazaar than a staid jewelry store. The effect was stunning and completely unlike anything Harrington's had ever done. It's different, James the security guard commented, standing at his post in a new suit. Too different? Everett asked. James grinned. Not for me. But those old money types? They might need smelling salts. By 7 o'clock, it was clear that Patricia's sabotage had partially succeeded. Of the 50 traditional Harrington clients invited, only 15 had confirmed attendance. But thanks to Maya and Zoe's social media campaign, over 100 new guests had RSVP'd. Fashion influencers, young professionals, art world figures, and jewelry enthusiasts from diverse backgrounds. At 7:30, the first guests began to arrive. As predicted, the traditional clients looked taken aback by the transformation, clustering together near the champagne bar and speaking in hushed, disapproving tones. But they stayed, too curious about the rumored new collection to leave. The new guests, however, moved through the space with excitement, taking photos of the displays in themselves, creating exactly the buzz Maya had hoped for. Patricia worked the room with professional polish, though her smile grew strained each time she was asked about the innovative direction or the bold new aesthetic. By 8 o'clock, a line had formed to speak with Maya, who found herself suddenly in demand as both designer and spokesperson for Harrington's evolution. Everett circulated quietly, observing rather than inserting himself. This was Maya's moment, her vindication after years of having her talent dismissed. She shone in the spotlight, explaining her inspirations and concepts with growing confidence. At 8:45, Richard Harrington himself arrived, his ruddy face betraying his anger even as he forced civility. He headed straight for Everett. "What have you done to my store?" he demanded, voice low but intense. "Created an atmosphere where everyone feels welcome to appreciate fine jewelry," Everett replied calmly. Your daughter sends her regards, by the way. She's quite pleased with the changes." Richard's face darkened further. "Eleanor doesn't understand tradition, the heritage we've built. Perhaps she understands it better than you think." Everett gestured around the room. "Look at these people, Richard. They're excited, engaged, and most importantly, they're buying." It was true. Despite the unorthodox presentation, or perhaps because of it, sales were brisk. Even some of the traditional clients had been won over by the craftsmanship of the new pieces, making purchases while still muttering about the unusual setting. The main showroom of Harrington & Sons had been transformed into something between a gallery and a theater. Guests gathered around a circular platform where a single pedestal stood, covered by a midnight blue velvet cloth. Anticipation hummed in the air as a conversation quieted. Everett stepped onto the platform, commanding attention without raising his voice. "Welcome to the new era of Harrington & Sons," he began. "For 75 years, this establishment has been synonymous with luxury and tradition. Tonight, we honor that legacy while embracing a future where beauty and craftsmanship know no boundaries of culture or background." He gestured to Maya, who joined him on the platform, her simple black dress offset by a delicate gold dragon pin, a miniature version of her signature design. "I'm pleased to introduce Maya Chen, the creative visionary behind our new Celestial Dragon collection. Her designs represent a fusion of Eastern and Western artistic traditions, reflecting her own multicultural heritage and unique perspective." Maya stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "All my life, I've existed between worlds, never fully belonging to one culture. In these designs, I've turned that in-between space into something beautiful." She glanced at Patricia, who stood rigid at the edge of the crowd. "Something that couldn't exist if it only drew from one tradition." Eleanor Harrington nodded approvingly, while her father watched with grudging interest. "Tonight," Maya continued, "we're proud to present the culmination of this vision, a piece that celebrates connections across differences." She moved to the pedestal and placed her hand on the velvet cloth. "The Celestial Dragon Necklace." With a fluid motion, she unveiled the piece. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The necklace was magnificent. The blue diamond caught the light like a perfect star, while platinum and white gold dragons curved around it, their scales set with tiny diamonds and sapphires. It was simultaneously modern and timeless, bold and elegant. "The central blue diamond comes from the Sierra Leone Ethical Mining Cooperative," Maya explained. "Set in a design that draws inspiration from both Chinese dragon mythology and the celestial navigation used by escaped slaves seeking freedom in the north." Her voice grew stronger. "It represents guidance and transformation, the courage to forge new paths while honoring ancient wisdom." For several moments, silence held as guests absorbed the stunning creation. Then applause erupted, starting with Eleanor Harrington herself and spreading throughout the room. As people pressed forward to view the necklace more closely, Richard Harrington remained back, his expression conflicted. Everett approached him. "Impressive craftsmanship," Richard admitted reluctantly. "I suppose there is a market for this fusion approach." "There always was," Everett replied. "You just couldn't see it." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the main entrance. Patricia stood there, face flushed with anger, confronting a new arrival, an elderly black woman leaning on a cane, dressed simply but elegantly. "This is a private event," Patricia was saying loudly. "You need an invitation." "She has one," Everett called, striding quickly across the room. "She's my guest." He reached the woman's side, taking her frail hand in his. The resemblance between them was subtle but unmistakable. The same determined set of the jaw, the same perceptive eyes. "Everyone," Everett announced, his voice carrying across the now silent room. "I'd like you to meet Irene James, my aunt and guardian after my mother passed." He looked around the store, meeting the eyes of the longest-serving staff members. "And, for those who remember, she worked here as part of the maintenance staff for 30 years. Frank the janitor stepped forward, his face breaking into a wide smile. "Irene, it's been too long." Irene smiled back, her eyes crinkling. "Frank, Still keeping this place running, I see. Other longtime employees approached, greeting her with surprise and genuine warmth. Even Richard Harrington looked taken aback, clearly recognizing her. "Miss James," he said stiffly, "it's been many years." "Indeed it has, Mr. Harrington," she replied with dignity, "though I recall you rarely noticed me when I cleaned your office each night." Richard had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Yes, well, things were different then." "They certainly were," Irene agreed. She turned to Maya, who had joined the group. "And you must be the designer I've heard so much about. Everett talks of little else these days." Maya blushed. "It's an honor to meet you, Miss James." "The honor is mine, child." Irene gestured to the celestial dragon necklace still on display. "To see such beauty created in a place where people like us were once only allowed to clean the floors, that's a kind of magic. The moment crystallized something for everyone present. The transformation wasn't just about designs or marketing, but about who was allowed to create beauty, to define luxury, to belong in spaces of privilege." Patricia watched from the sidelines, her expression shifting from disdain to something more complex. Perhaps the first glimmer of understanding. Everett helped Irene to a seat of honor near the display. As she settled in, he whispered, "She would have been so proud today, wouldn't she?" Irene squeezed his hand. "Your mother? Oh, child, she's been proud of you every day since you were born. But yes, today, especially." For the first time since entering Harrington & Sons 3 days ago, Everett James felt the weight of his mission lift slightly, replaced by something lighter, not quite peace, but perhaps its beginning. The day after Diamond Night, Harrington & Sons buzzed with activity and aftershocks. Sales figures had shattered records, triple the previous year's event. Social media was flooded with images of the Celestial Dragon collection, each post generating dozens of inquiries from potential new clients. In the executive office, Everett sat across from Patricia Whitfield. Between them lay a folder containing documentation of all her attempts to sabotage Diamond Night. "I could fire you," Everett said calmly. "The board would support it, especially after last night's success." Patricia's carefully maintained facade had crumbled. She looked tired, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "I assume that's what comes next. Is that what you'd do in my position?" She laughed bitterly. Without hesitation, Everett leaned forward, "Which is precisely why our approaches differ." He closed the folder. "I'm not firing you, Patricia." Confusion crossed her face. "I don't understand. You have 20 years of experience in client relationships that are valuable to this company. What you lack is perspective." He slid a different document across the desk. "This is your new position. Special Consultant for Client Relations." Patricia scanned the paper, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "This is a lateral move. Same salary. With one condition." Everett tapped another document. "You'll be working directly with Maya for 6 months, implementing our new mentorship program for young designers from underrepresented backgrounds." Patricia stared at him. "You want me to train people to replace me?" "To join you," Everett corrected. "To bring perspectives you haven't considered, to reach markets you haven't explored." He leaned back. "You're an excellent saleswoman, Patricia. But you've been selling to the same exclusive circle for years, ignoring a world of potential clients who never felt welcome here. And if I refuse, then yes, we part ways." Everett's voice remained calm. "But I'm hoping you won't. Last night proved that tradition and innovation can coexist, that Harrington's can maintain its standard of excellence while becoming more inclusive." Patricia was silent for a long moment. "Why offer me this chance, after everything I did? Because firing you would be easy. Changing your mind, and this company's culture, is the harder path, and the more worthwhile one." As Patricia left to consider his offer, Maya entered with a stack of orders from Diamond Night. "You didn't fire her," she observed. "No. Even after she tried to sabotage everything we worked for?" Everett smiled slightly. "Especially because of that. People who fight hardest against change often do so out of fear. Show them there's nothing to fear, and they can become your strongest advocates." Maya looked skeptical. "That's very optimistic." Perhaps, but I've seen it happen. He gestured to the orders. How are we doing? Better than I ever imagined. Maya's face glowed with pride. The Celestial Dragon necklace sold for twice its asking price after a bidding war. And we have orders for custom pieces from clients who'd never set foot in Harrington's before, including the mayor's daughter, not the mayor's wife who canceled, but her daughter who came without telling her mother, 3 tech executives, a famous basketball player. Maya grinned, and Mrs. Westbrook's niece, who specifically requested something her aunt would hate. Everett laughed. Perfect. Later that afternoon, he met with the board again. This time, the atmosphere was markedly different. William Preston, who had been so skeptical just days before, now leaned forward eagerly as Everett presented the sales figures. These numbers are impressive, Preston admitted, particularly the new client acquisition rate. And the press coverage is extraordinary, added another board member. We've never had this kind of media attention. Richard Harrington sat silently at the end of the table, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. My daughter believes in your vision for this company. He said it grudgingly but without the hostility of before. She's always had good instincts. Better than mine, perhaps. She has excellent instincts, Everett agreed, which is why I'm proposing she rejoin the board, effective immediately. The surprise in the room was palpable. Eleanor Harrington had left the family business years ago after her progressive ideas were repeatedly rejected. You'd give up your seat for her? Richard asked, genuinely confused. Not give up, share. Everett slid a proposal across the table. Co-chairs, her experience and my fresh perspective. Together. As the board members discussed the unprecedented arrangement, Everett stepped out to find James the security guard waiting. Sir, there's something you should see. James led him to the back office where inventory records were kept. He unlocked a cabinet that hadn't been opened in years, revealing hundreds of customer files. I overheard Patricia talking about destroying these, James explained, so I moved them first. The files contained detailed documentation of the gemstone substitution scheme, inferior stones sold as premium quality to international clients who wouldn't know the difference. The margins were enormous, and the trail led directly to Richard Harrington himself. 6 months later, Harrington and Sons had been transformed in ways few could have imagined that first dramatic morning when Everett had presented the deed. The main showroom now featured rotating displays of both traditional pieces and innovative designs from Maya's expanding team of diverse artisans. Sales had increased by 30%, and their client base had broadened significantly while still retaining most of their traditional customers. Patricia Whitfield had surprised everyone, perhaps even herself, by excelling in her new role. After initial resistance, she had discovered an untapped talent for connecting traditional jewelry expertise with contemporary perspectives. The mentorship program she ran with Maya had already produced 3 promising designers whose work would be featured in the upcoming seasonal collection. On this particular morning, Everett sat in the executive office, now relocated to a light-filled space overlooking the workshop rather than isolated behind closed doors. Maya entered with the latest sales figures and a cappuccino. The Tokyo store opens next week, she reminded him, settling into the chair opposite his desk. Are you nervous? About our first international location? Not at all. Everett smiled. Especially with you overseeing the design direction. The expansion to Tokyo had been Eleanor Harrington's idea, recognizing that Maya's fusion aesthetic would resonate strongly in a market that valued both tradition and innovation. As co-chair of the board, Eleanor had brought a wealth of progressive ideas tempered by deep knowledge of the luxury market. Have you heard from your aunt? Maya asked, sipping her coffee. She's enjoying Florida, sends pictures of herself on the beach almost daily. Everett chuckled. She says retirement is everything she dreamed of during those 30 years of cleaning floors. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock. Richard Harrington stood in the doorway, looking older but somehow more at peace than he had 6 months earlier. Am I interrupting? He asked. Not at all, Everett replied, gesturing to a chair. Maya was just updating me on the Tokyo launch. Richard nodded. Eleanor tells me the advance interest is considerable. Beyond our projections, Maya confirmed. An awkward silence fell. Richard cleared his throat. I actually came to return this. He placed a small box on the desk. Inside was a flash drive. The last copies of certain inventory records. James told me you've had them all along. Everett met the older man's gaze steadily. Yes, you could have used them against me. Against the Harrington name. I could have. Richard's expression showed genuine bewilderment. Why didn't you? Everett considered the question carefully. Because destroying something is easy. Building something better is harder, and more worthwhile. Like turning a jewelry store into a movement, Maya added softly. That evening, as staff prepared to close, a young black girl about 10 years old pressed her face against the window, staring in wonder at a dragon bracelet similar to Maya's original design. Her mother tried to pull her away, saying, "Places like that aren't for people like us." Everett, happening to walk by, opened the door wide. "Actually," he said warmly, "this place is exactly for people like you. Would you like to come in?" The girl's eyes widened as Maya appeared beside Everett, kneeling to meet her at eye level. "Do you like dragons?" Maya asked. The girl nodded shyly. "Me too," Maya confided. "I've been drawing them since I was about your age." She glanced up at the girl's mother. "We're about to close, but we'd be happy to show you around. No pressure to buy anything." "I couldn't possibly afford," the mother began. "That's not why we're inviting you in," Everett assured her. "Sometimes people just need to see what's possible. To know spaces like this belong to them too." As they stepped inside, the girl's face lit up with wonder at the beautiful objects surrounding them. Maya showed her how different gems caught the light, explaining how designs went from drawing to reality. "Could I make jewelry someday?" the girl asked tentatively. "Absolutely," Maya replied without hesitation. "In fact, we have a program for young designers. I'd be happy to tell you about it." Watching them, Everett felt a circle completing. From his mother cleaning display cases while he peered in as a boy, to this child being welcomed inside with dignity and possibility. From exclusion to belonging. From invisible to valued. Outside, as dusk fell, the illuminated sign above the entrance glowed softly. Harrington and Sons had been joined by a smaller inscription beneath, "Where beauty knows no boundaries." It was, Everett reflected, just the beginning. If this story touched your heart today, become part of our storytelling family. What transformation in your own life resonated most with Everett and Maya's journey? Share your breakthrough moments in the comments. We're creating a tapestry of real-life transformations together. Every story matters, including yours.